Every month, companies spend a lot of money online marketing to generate traffic to their website. And hopefully we're engaging them when they get there, making it easy for them to do business with us so that they'll purchase our products and services. But according to my guest today, Whit Norrad, who is the head of client marketing and strategy for Flex Dealer, a marketing agency in Canada that serves both the Canadian market and the US market, she said there's two things that businesses really need to pay attention to. One is, are they really connected? Are they delivering on the experience that they're marketing in a consistent and sustainable way? And secondly is, do the leaders of the organization have the patience to understand that marketing takes time to generate the results that you're looking for? Fascinating conversation. She is a great guest. I can't wait for you to meet her. So let's dive into today's episode of You're in Charge Now What with Whit Norrad. All right. So I'm very excited that you're here, Whit. So let's just dive into the whole marketing game here, because you've been doing marketing for a very, very long time. And you know, when we connected on Twitter, you're very passionate about it, opinionated about it in a good way. But for businesses or someone who's sitting there listening right now and saying, well, I'm in charge of marketing for my company, where are some common mistakes that people are making today in terms of their marketing?
I think the biggest thing that I encounter is lack of planning. And I think that partially comes from, yes, the person in the driver's seat of the marketing department, if you will, but then oftentimes from business ownership, where it can be tough for people to actually get buy-in from the people that, you know, write their paychecks, to whether that's to hire an appropriate photographer or they're expecting that person to do too much. So that piece is really, they all tie together in terms of cost and in terms of what making a plan looks like. And then also following through on that plan. Because it doesn't really matter what the industry is. Every industry moves fast. Everything's quick. Everything's changing. So it's not so much about having this 5-year plan or a 12-month plan that needs to do X, Y, Z exactly at any given point, but having a generalized roadmap and being able to prioritize what matters most. So sometimes that means prioritizing individual channels one at a time. You look to different companies or even different solopreneurs that have done this successfully. It's not as if they go guns blazing to every single platform all at once.
Right.
So it's really pinpointing priority and then matching that to a strategy over time.
So when you're talking about it, and I agree with you, I think this idea of planning, there's two areas I want to cover, because you touched on both of them. One is getting buy-in and that connection between leadership and the marketing department. And then this other idea of the channels and trying to do too much. So let's talk first about the buy-in. I see people when they, clients who hire, let's say our agency or your agency, there are some clients who are just great. That's what I hired you to do. Go do it. Sometimes when you're dealing with somebody on their end, it seems like they're either just overwhelmed, as you said, they're given so much to do, or in some cases they're isolated. Meaning nobody in the building knows what they're doing. That's Glenn over in the corner there. They do marketing. So if someone's sitting there going, yes, that's mine, I can't get buy-in. Is it that the person who's receiving, that higher up doesn't understand it, or it's not communicated in a certain way that they can understand? Where do you see some of those disconnects, or how do you think someone could improve their communication to get that buy-in?
Yeah, so definitely communication is piece number one. I would even say there's 3, second being education, but to the right extent. And then at the same time, being able to break things down in ways that make sense so that leadership or business ownership views cost expenditures as an investment rather than a cost. Right. Because that very much is how marketing works. And especially for, second, third gen business owners, oftentimes I think they've maybe been sort of taking it on the chin a little bit when it comes to, okay, let's reduce costs, let's do all of these things. But at the same time, there is very much an element of marketing where, whether it's in terms of hours, time, paid media, you're spending money to make money. So I think being able to
not
look
all
at
marketing
things,
and not all marketing works. And sometimes that's a disconnect as well, where we just think everything's going to generate X and you're going, no, that we tested that, it failed. We tried this. I think you're spot on making that someone understand it in terms they understand. Sometimes we get caught in our own marketing lingo and people look at us like, what the hell are they saying?
Yeah. And I think that happens oftentimes between, if there's a marketing person and an agency and leadership, or
Mm-hmm.
even just between an individual marketing role and ownership, where there's this very high sort of technical understanding of all the things that go into making campaigns work, and then what that actually means. And this is something I've talked about a lot lately, but attribution is something I feel like we're going to beat to death. And it's taken through so many stages, right? Where it was, billboards can't track it, newspaper can't track it, radio can't track it, to the same extent that you could digital. So there's this expectation, I think, for anybody, especially that isn't dealing with marketing, especially on the digital side firsthand, of, okay, well, if we do this and I put $1,000 here, I put $10,000 here, I can expect X. And it doesn't work like that. It's not clear cut. Does that account for the time that they already dealt with your business? Does that account for the time they commented on the post and you said something funny back? So there's no way to track everything. And I think the sooner that businesses sort of, or rather ownership, begins to accept that and have a little bit more sort of faith in the whole process and the end outcome where everything ties together, the better off everybody will be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think everybody was sold a bill of goods that with digital everything, we can measure everything, and we can't. And we're seeing that, especially in, what a lot of our clients, joint client, we deal in automotive. When you're doing all of these different technology pieces, they don't talk to each other. So you lose that thread of attribution at a certain level. And, it is, to your point, education of what each of these campaigns are trying to accomplish. If the goal of this campaign is them to watch the video, well, that's completely different than a campaign that I want them to click on something and come to my website. But to your point is, I think it's easy when we default to, as someone in the marketing chair, when we try to explain, and if we get some confusion or pushback, we dig deeper into the data. And that's really the wrong thing to do, versus try to explain it to someone in their, like, connect the dots. Because a lot of times what I found successful was, especially with maybe first generation or second generation, older in age, ownership, they understood how to market using the technology they had, which was radio, TV, print. So how do you connect what we're doing now to that? How do we say, well, like, Google My Business is the yellow pages, right? And someone goes, oh, I understand what that means. You say video pre-roll is a commercial. And they go, oh, I understand what that means. It's breaking down those barriers of confusion. And I think your point was really spot on. And I don't want anyone to miss it, is that idea of education. Sometimes the receiver, that owner, thinks, I have to understand what Whit does. I have to understand how she does everything. No, he or she needs to understand the reports and what do I have to give to you, so that you, as you said, build trust that this is working. It's moving us further down the path. I think those are all real good points, because sometimes we just keep talking at each other and confusing each other, and hence the frustration.
Yeah. And it's interesting. A lot of it comes back to sort of the how to win friends and influence people concepts of, 20, 30 years ago at this point, where can I meet them where they're at? Because I don't want to say everybody in every industry isn't more technical or isn't data driven. We definitely have clients where the full hour long digging in, opening it up, here's what it looks like, works. And there's definitely people that want that. But especially in automotive, the vast majority, I would probably estimate 75% of people don't care for that. It's here's the sort of top 5 things that you need to know about and what they mean. We call it kitchen table talk. So very straightforward language. A Google vehicle listing ad, it's like when you look for shoes, but it's for cars with a picture, is the simple explainer.
Right.
That makes sense. Whereas if I say Google vehicle listing ads, pull a feed and this,
I
it's
know. Their eyes roll up into the back of their heads. But to your point, I think that's also a very good thing for all of the people listening from both sides. Either you're the owner talking to the marketer, or the marketer talking, or an agency talking, is setting that table, so to speak, right at the beginning of what are the metrics that we want to focus on, what does success look like for you? Because I could be providing these metrics and they don't mean anything to me, so I don't know, versus understanding, well, no, I really just want to know, is my phone ringing? When people come to my website, what are they doing? Am I generating more opportunities for my team to sell a product and service? Okay, yeah, website traffic coming from here. Like, okay, maybe, but for the most part, you're going to have some people who are not going to want to dig in, and we want to dig in to show you all this because that excites us as marketers. So understanding your audience, I think, is really important. Really, really a great point.
Yeah, and it's so funny too, all of the nuance in that, because I think sometimes in that lack of planning, people can struggle to either set appropriate goals or stick to appropriate goals.
Right.
So if that goal is, okay, we want to increase just lead quantity, barring anything else, that's very possible. But at the same time, that dramatic increase very likely comes with a drop in quality. So that becomes a malleable conversation of which of these things matters more. And in chasing either one, you need to do it for a while to see how it actually works. That flip-flop can't exist. And I think from a high level, it's very easy to say, let's move the chess pieces when it doesn't work like that. So trying to set that expectation from the marketer's chair to ownership and to everybody else in the business as well. If there's businesses where you have a sales team or even a retail team, those people need to be aware of what's happening, not just in terms of individual promotions, but the overall where it's going and why.
Yeah. And I try to slow down and pull over to the rest stop, so to speak, on the conversations, and make sure people really hear what you just said. That idea of time. I don't think we communicate as marketers well enough to our clients the time that either the marketing campaign needs to see results, and what results we're looking at, or how it evolves over time. And that could be tied to the platform. When you first realize this platform needs 45 to 60 days or 90 days to really understand the audience. And some people think 90 days, I want results now. And so it's really explaining to them certain things need time. We're watching it, but we won't know. But once we hit that sort of pacing, where now the machine's working, it understands we want, then we can really accelerate, but it is allowing someone to understand that time. So the other thing you said there, and it's a good place to pivot, where you said there's so many things, going on and doing multiple things and prioritizing, either what campaign or what you're trying to accomplish. I think that also ties into prioritizing what platform. And I've heard clients getting I wouldn't say nervous. They're just asking because every day it seems there's another place that we could communicate with people, or potentially our customers might be there. Now the newest thing that automotive people are talking about, and other businesses, is we all have to be on TikTok. And the question really is, okay, is my audience there, and what do I do with it? Because that's a completely different idea than, well, I'm going to email, I'm going to send a mail piece and it's going to show up in your mailbox, or I'm going to produce a commercial. So what are your thoughts about if someone's sitting in the chair now, they're new in, or even if they're experienced, they're sitting there going, how do they decide where they need to go? Or, because if you can't do everything, because it's not, it waters it down. How do they find, or how would you prioritize where you would want to market online?
I think that brings in almost a side point that's really important, is sort of
Mhm.
the comparison is the thief of joy metaphor, where dealer A is totally different from dealer B, business C is totally different from business D. Because for some dealers, using your example of TikTok, they're there. They've mastered all of the other
Mhm.
pieces. Now it's time to incorporate this new thing. But then if you look to perhaps a small rural business that manages to post on Facebook once a week, does it make sense for them to say, okay, we're
Right.
going to go to TikTok? No. And does that sort of silver, or not silver spoon, maybe shiny object matter more than the basics? Probably not. So I think it comes down to really evaluating where you're at and what the close proximity to increasing your business would be, knowing
Right.
that is your market here. And in specifically the example of TikTok, there's individual salespeople and dealerships that are doing really cool things using this platform. And sometimes that means they're working the leads they already have as almost a means to show off, which I love.
Right.
And then in the same token, there's dealers who are just using it because they think they need to be there with not an understanding of the end outcome, because it's viral. Does viral matter to you? Does viral matter to you in, small town Arkansas, or does it matter to you in small town Saskatchewan, Canada, when we're
Right.
looking at this big thing? And yes, there's the algorithm does localize you. I was just on a trip out west, and within a day everything I saw was, here's where to go in Vancouver, even though I'm
Mhm.
leaving in a day. So that's still worth being considered, but at the same time, viral doesn't matter if that person in the UK can't buy a car from you. Is that
Right.
going to happen?
No,
So
yeah, that's a great point, because I think one of the things that what I'm hearing from you is we need to first understand our business, who we are, what we do, where our audience is, where, and thinking through, where is our audience consuming content, and are we
yep.
there first? Right? Somebody's going to say, oh well, everybody's on TikTok, and maybe they are, but to your point is, have I taken care of the bigger chunks first? Right? Have I mastered, maybe Facebook is where people are, or LinkedIn, or OTT, or something else, even could be in certain areas, the newspaper, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Have you mastered those? Are you present there? Are you prepared? I've been on this sort of rant lately of, are you present where you think your audience is, and are you prepared to engage with them? And then is anybody watching it, so that you can refine that sort of process? But to your point is, I think sometimes a lot of industries, or even ourselves, fall prey to the shiny object. I need to be on TikTok. Well, why? Is that really right for you? Is that, do you have enough time to do it well? Because if it's just,
Yep.
oh, I'm going to post something once, then why are you even there? Unless you're really, and I keep going to the word that you say, and because I think it's really key, is, have I planned a strategy out? Because if you're going to do it, why am I doing it? What am I expecting out of this? And is this right for my business, versus, oh, it just sounds good because it's fun?
Yeah, exactly. That's very much so. And I think sometimes even things like NADA or bigger conferences where we're looking at what is the newest thing, sometimes that very well might be the right thing to do if it is the closest thing between you and more business.
Right.
And I think a lot of that tends to apply a lot more to the e-commerce world than outside of the e-commerce world. But pulling all of those things together to say, if you had to choose between Instagram and TikTok, which would you choose?
Right.
Would you push that away entirely and sort of give it that real analysis rather than saying, let's do it? Because you will lose something most of the time, unless you're hiring another person or you've systematized something to account for that time. Is it worth losing something else? And how close is that? And I think sometimes we see individual businesses are really, really, really keen to think that they know their market their best. And I don't want to say that, with research, any
Mhm.
agency would know that market better. But to really think about the nuance of that market and where your market is in terms of base demographics, because we're seeing this huge shift. I mean, 3-4 years ago, I was saying, well, screw the millennials, they don't have any money. Here we are, 2022. Now the biggest buying segment with the most money of all things. And so it's really, are people aware of even those changes, which are much bigger than an individual area or an individual state, province, whatever it might be, and catering to that.
But do
So
you
because the
think that
platform,
do you think businesses make a mistake because they lump everybody together in these naming conventions, the millennials, Gen Z, and they have one strategy for that group, but yet at least feedback from people at certain ages where, because my staff is they're all in their 20s and 30s, they get offended when somebody says Gen Z, millennial, Gen Y, whatever generation they're in, whatever label they've been given, and they say they're all this, or this is the way you market to them. And they're going, well, wait a minute. Someone says Gen Z, Gen Y, they're lazy. And they're going, I'm not lazy. I own a house. I'm doing this. So I just feel in every age group, listen, I know people my age group that are lazy, so it isn't just that. So do you think, how do you break out of that mindset as a marketer where it's, we're trying to put everybody in this little box here, and so, oh, great, now I make my one strategy for millennial marketing because now they have money.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So I think that where the separation really should lie, because in the world of marketing, there is a lot of assumption, there is a lot of experimentation, and then all of the and then pushing the everything is it depends. So if I think about the things that offend any demographic, those are things that are an assumption and not fact. So if we look to something like the shift of buying power, that's just a fact, one way or the other. And the shift of 5 years ago, was the majority of millennials in a different financial situation, unfortunately, before parents passed and inheritances. Very much so. So I think it's really looking at true data that apply to these assumptions rather than just saying, oh yeah, they're young, they're lazy, they're old, they don't need a truck anymore.
Well, to your point is, I think what I see, because I have a 15 and a 17-year-old, is I just watch how they consume content differently, and they want ease, but so do I. Right. So again, it's not this, oh, well, they don't want to do X, Y, and Z. I just think that we're all used to the speed of our phone, the speed of our internet, the fact that I could order something from Amazon today and potentially in a few hours have it on my front porch is mind blowing to someone who is my age, who said, oh my God, you'd have to figure out if you had it and you went to the store and maybe they did, and maybe you came back, or if you ordered something, you just had to wait for weeks at a time. I just think we're all in that way now. And so I think businesses really have to think about their process, because they should be marketing that in terms of how easy it is to do business with me, which have to think about that too, because it's not just the millennials who don't want to waste time. Nobody wants to waste time anymore. So again, it goes, I think instead of saying this generation is this or this generation is this, I would just say pretty much everybody doesn't, right? It goes more across all generations from a business standpoint of how do I market my value to all of them, and how do I tell them how it's easier to do business with me to all of them. Now, you might have to advertise on certain platforms to get attention from a certain group because that's where they hang out. Okay. But I still think we make mistakes in marketing because we generalize large groups of people and miss the uniqueness that is pretty much in every generation.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point as well, where if you are whatever generation you fall into, if you are consuming content in a quick format way, that will steer what platform you're using. As a short comparison, that is TikTok. That's the shortest, and then to Instagram Reels, and then to Facebook tends to be slower. And not to say they all don't cross together and the overall speed of content isn't moving, but the platform to a certain extent will almost take care of that a little bit for you if you're doing it properly.
Right. Yeah. So I as I said, I watch my sons, both of them. They don't really watch TV, so hitting them with a commercial wouldn't happen for them. they'll stream, but they'd rather have the streaming platform. Dad, can we spend money so we don't see ads? They consume content on YouTube. They're always watching YouTube for their little whatever channels and what persons they're following. So video pre-roll would definitely grab them, as well as Instagram. Now, interestingly enough, my oldest one doesn't really post a lot on Instagram, but he follows people, but he follows brands. So he's looking at sneakers, he's looking at basketball players, he's looking at, movies that he likes. So it's looking at that and saying, oh, they're using that almost as some people would use Google in a completely different way. And so now you sit there and say, if I want my son's attention, if I'm selling a vehicle, I better get to him. I better start now and get my message in front of them, whatever that message is, on YouTube and pre-roll or whatever it is, because that's where he's hanging out. Versus, I keep running my OTT ads. And it goes back to what we said before, knowing where your audience hangs out, then you have to sort of be everywhere, but do it in a deliberate fashion where you say, probably more people on YouTube are this, potentially.
No, and I mean, it's tricky depending on the industry too, where sometimes if you look to something like automotive, you're a lot more restricted, due to special ad categories and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think a big shift that people need to start to see is that pretty much everything is a search engine in some capacity. So like your example of using sneakers as Google, you'll see that people will insert Reddit after the end of their search query. So it could be, is this service worth it? Or is this car good? But they'll put Reddit on the end of it because there's this distrust in certain editorial type content, where if they're looking to Reddit, they're looking to their peers. And that same thing can be said for Google reviews, for YouTube, for Twitter, for everything. Looking at when we bought our last house, I was looking for every single thing I could possibly think of to make sure that there's nothing wrong with properties. And I went through TikTok results and Reddit results to find long form lists and individual sort of tips that cater to that. Outside of just what we would learn from our realtor, who's fantastic, but all of these things that you want to educate yourself on, people are educating themselves in the same way that they're still searching for data, but they're searching for it in a lot more places than they used to, where it was Google was sort of the only place that people were looking for insights. And really low barrier to entry way for businesses to create content, whether it's written on their blog, whether it's on social, is to do the sort of you ask or they ask, you answer concept, where if you look at the questions that they're putting into Google, which you can start typing and Google will drop down
Google
for
will
you.
tell you, yes.
Or you could use a service. There's, you've probably heard of it, Answer the Public, where you can put in a product and it will say, here's all of the searches that people are doing about this. So, and then when you flip that back over to Google, if you have FAQs about this product, you're way more likely to show up in the top results because you're answering those questions.
You're answering the question. So that's a great point. I think businesses struggle because I've been asked this question, well, what content should I produce? Everyone says you need to make content. And I think it ties into what you just said, is that if the consumer is looking for more peer feedback, yes, we see your marketing and they're going to get hooked by your marketing and you're going to say, oh, that's a great ad. But I think then people are going to default to go read your reviews to validate your claims, right? So you could say, I'm the best in the world, and people are going, no, they're not, right? Yeah. So in a simple way, I think another way, again, without people overthinking, is go ask your sales team or ask yourself if you're a solopreneur, what are the top 5 questions I get asked about my business? Or what are the top questions that someone asks, your salespeople or your customer service, or when they call up and they're struggling or they're asking, how do I do X, or does your product do Y? You could probably come up with 20 things fairly quickly. I would bet everyone, I'll challenge everyone who's listening, that when we're done with this episode, you do that. There's a little exercise. Just quickly say, what are the top 10 questions somebody asks me about my product? And then ask yourself, do you have an answer for that on your website, your YouTube channel, somewhere that you would say, no, I don't. Okay, start. answer people's questions. I think that's one of the best ways, to your point, is to have great content. It's easy. And there's always something. You're never going to run out of content because someone's always going to be asking you a question. Some scenario is going to come up. You're going to compare yourself to something else. So again, same thing. If somebody's buying your product, what else are they looking at? Tons of content. Let's not overthink it. I think it's a really good point, Whit.
Now, to take it a step further too, one of the things that we ask our clients when we're chatting with them is, what are the biggest pain points that your staff from different departments see people complaining about? Because we can help them overcome that, whether it's, oh, I was really confused about what this form on your site meant, or I was confused between these two products, whatever it is. Chances are they're not the only person that experienced it, right? So how, from the point of marketing, can we alleviate those pain points? You know, for some businesses, they're still taking 3-4 days to finance a vehicle, which is insane. You should be able to, we're almost there. And in some spots we're totally there. And, you know, there's crypto car purchases happening.
Yes.
But all that to say, if you can't deliver a vehicle the same day that I want to buy it, that should be step one before anything, right? Like alleviating these very common pain points that people have been resting on their laurels because there's been no other choice. Somebody else is going to beat you to the punch on those small little pain points. So to look at the questions, but also to look at what hurts your customer base and maybe helps you lose business.
And that's another great point. I'd love your feedback on this. So as a marketer, and your company, you know, Flex Dealer also builds websites for, you know, some clients, and you've built websites previously, is that I would love to hear your viewpoint on this, because what you just said about let's, you know, try to alleviate obstacles or friction points for our customers, you know, like where are they? Do you find that people don't take the time to look at their own website? You know, they put it up, they've added things, they've, you know, done things, or maybe they haven't, but to really look at it and say, is this still easy for my customers to use? So to your point is, someone will fill out a form. Is it easy? Or how many people start the form but don't finish, right? We don't look at that. We look at how many people filled out a form, but how many started, how many didn't. And, you know, like, when was the last time that you went on your website and tried to buy your own product? Is it easy? So what are your thoughts around that? You know, because again, we constantly will market. When we think marketing, we're like, you know, push out, get people to our website. But to your point is, if we give them a horrible experience when they get here, did we waste our money? Is that part of marketing as well, to sort of audit the landing pad where we're sending our customers?
Yeah, I would venture to say that yes, it is. And it's one of those things where I see a lot of variability in that. There's some people who are, you know, very married to every little piece of their website. And I love that, because there's infinite fuel there of things that we can do in ways that we can iterate together. And when things are ignored, if you have a great agency behind you that's looking at those things and you can trust in that, that's amazing. That's great. No complaints. But there's so much variability. It's almost tough to sort of say one way or the other if this is right or this is wrong. But when people are at a bare minimum spending those marketing dollars to generate leads, and then the lead calls and you go, I don't know if that person's here. I don't know. Right. You sold that truck. That's a different piece. Like, you paid for the lead and your team's butchering it. How can we help you overcome that? And that comes down to even little things like, does the messaging that your website has or your ads have, does that match? Does your sales team know about that? Is everybody aware of what the promotions are? Are they the same online as they are in person? If not, why? How is that demonstrated to the customer? And all of those little pieces. So I think there needs to be a certain level of cohesion between businesses and their marketing agencies or their marketing individual in-house, as well as a great deal of trust. It is a big deal. If you look at the numbers, even of the smallest sites, that's still a lot of people that you're meeting through a screen every day.
Yes. And I think that's another great point, is that I think sometimes we put the cart before the horse, so to speak, meaning that, oh, it's great marketing. I come back from an event, or I come back from meeting other people, or I see somebody else, competitor, doing something, and like, we're going to do this. And I'm on the phone with the marketer and say, let's go do this. But before we do that, we better think to ourselves, can I deliver on that? to your point
Yep.
is that if I can market till I'm blue in the face, I can drive tons of traffic. I can make your phone ring. But if you don't answer the phone, if it's not a great experience, well, then you're wasting money. So again, I think it's always through the lens of, is this right for my company? Can I deliver on this, whatever I'm saying? If not, will I have to either figure out how to deliver on it before I, spend money, or maybe it's a couple tweaks here or there. But I think that's really key because, again, quick ideas. I see it's this idea of rushing to marketing. Got to rush, going to lose, got to get there, got to get the calls, got to get the website. But in reality is you're losing if everything's not thought out and connected to what's going on, because guess what? People have a megaphone now, and they're going to put a review out there and go, this was not what I thought it was going to be. So now I have to overcome that. So again, it's this odd vicious cycle versus taking a breath and saying, is this right for us or not?
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point of sustainability as well, where sometimes almost digital can shoot itself in the foot, where, okay, you fire up new campaigns, the website's ready to receive them, and everything works. That's great. That's what you want. But at the same time, if you're not doing the other pieces that surround that of what are you doing in your community? Do people see you? Do people know what your team looks like? Do they know the actual benefits of your product? That will eventually stall out, and you're not serving those people down the line. So that sort of short-sightedness all ties back into having a plan. How are you nurturing the people who, they clicked it, they interacted, but they didn't buy the thing? Are you retargeting them? Are you making sure that they're seeing awareness to follow you?
Or to your point, what if they did buy? And are they willing to say, yes, I want, oh, that was great? Are they going to become an advocate? Or was this just a one-time sale versus how do I retain them? How do I get them back? Again, depending on your product and time frame of when they would purchase again, to your point, getting a house. Exactly. Well, I'm not getting a house for a while, but you will recommend that realtor to say that was a great experience, but for most companies, the buying cycle might be shorter, so why wouldn't I want to retain? We spend a lot of time acquiring customers. What are we doing to retain our customers? How do we build that experience? And I really love that point, and I don't want to let it slide by, is does everyone in the building know what the marketing is? Is everyone in agreement with what we're marketing, meaning this is what we're delivering? Because we can deliver on this. It's getting everyone involved so they do understand that their actions are supporting the marketing message. What they're doing here in the brick and mortar or online or interacting with the customers, everything is marketing or supporting the marketing, so the customers walk away going, that was great. I want to come back. Just makes sense.
And it's all trust. It's all cohesion. It all goes together. And I think that can be very quickly missed for people, unfortunately. So it's building that in. I mean, sometimes it could be something where it has been important for a very long time, and your marketing pushes on this, the copy on your website pushes on this. But then all of a sudden, the staff that offer that service have quit or gotten sick or whatever it might be, and you can't offer that. The people that are producing marketing collateral about that need to know about that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you'll have people calling you and saying, hey, I need to book this. Oh, sorry, we can't. Or, oh, that's a 2-month wait.
Right.
Then why are you spending money marketing it?
Exactly. I think, and I really, again, that idea of connection where one hand is not operating in a silo from the other hand, and they don't know, and everyone's on autopilot going, well, I'm just going to keep advertising this. And lo and behold, something has changed. I think I like that idea that you said, or that wording that you said, of sustainability. It is this idea of it's all connected. One change over here has a ripple effect over here. Am I prepared? Am I aware? Are they aware? It's not easy, but at the same moment in time, if it always flows through the lens of this is who I am as a company, here's the experience I want my customers to feel when I leave, and then I'm training people to do this, then I can market, then I can create technology, then I can, all of that works hand in hand. But if I don't start there, all I'm doing is adding on marketing campaigns to generate traffic, and then all of a sudden it looks like the Frankenstein monster. It doesn't resemble what I'm marketing doesn't resemble what they get when they show up or interact with the team. And then you were in a vicious cycle of trying to fix bad reviews and no, I'm sorry. And it's just, to your point, you've said it multiple times, it's a waste of money. It's a waste of time if it's not all cohesive.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, part of the downfall is the things that work are often not very sexy. And there's so many sexy things in the world of technology where,
Yes.
yeah, of course you want to try it. And I relate to that and I empathize with that and don't necessarily think new is always bad by any means. I'm a big nerd. Of course, I'm here for all the new tech, but the things that work and consistently work and why they work and optimizing and looking at the data, all these things that make everything work to its best,
right,
often are very unsexy. And so sometimes it's just a matter of, if you're in person, are you doing good business?
Right.
Then you need to do the same online, because it's not that different. Yes, there's all of these technical things that you need somebody that you trust to handle, but at the same time, are you doing good business? Could you convince me to buy from you in a 10-second elevator ride, that elevator pitch? Why is your commodity different from anybody else?
Right.
Those very basic questions, it would, probably wouldn't surprise you, but there's so many people you ask that to and they don't know. They can't sell their own business that they or their family have owned for 20 years in 10 seconds.
Because we focus a lot of times on the product, not on what's around the product, and I've mentioned this a few times on certain episodes. I worked in hospitality for years, and way back, pre-social media, I worked for a very, amazing restaurateur in New York City. And he used to say, listen, yes, the food has to be good. He goes, but there's so many places somebody could get a good steak, a good piece of fish in New York City. It's the experience around it that's going to make people come back. And we have to do that every single day, over and over and over again. That's what's going, because word of mouth is going to get people to come. And when the person comes in, who, if I recommend something to you and you go in, if it's a great experience, hey, Glenn, thank you. If it isn't, Glenn, please don't recommend restaurants anymore to me. I think it's very similar. I don't think we talk enough about the process, the experience. Some of it is because it hasn't been well thought out, backwards from customer experience to process to the people who are going to do it. Then what tech, right? Then what tech makes it easy for my team to do it? What tech makes it easy for my customers to do it? Now, how do I watch it and train it and measure it? But without that sort of throughput, any decision I make is random versus, well, wait a minute. Does this fit my business? Is this replacing something? Is this adding on to something? Once you have that throughput, then I don't want to make it sound like it's easy to do it, but at least you have a frame of reference. To your point is, should I make this change? Should I advertise on TikTok? Should I do this? Should I have this message? Where am I sending these people? Is it staff? Like, all of it has to be thought out, or else you're creating more friction for your customers and obstacles. And it goes back to, we don't want that anymore, because we've had too many situations now where we don't have it. So why would I want to do business with somebody that's makes it hard for me to do business versus ease? I think we want ease. That's what we're all looking for.
We saw a great deal of that too when it comes to the automotive side. With the pandemic, we saw so many businesses do things that really probably they've been hesitant to do, have probably been being pushed to do for quite some time, and they had no choice. That was really incredible. And then you look to 2020, 21, we're all about digital retailing, and let's get a tool where you can do everything online. And a lot of businesses jumped to install that. This is the silver bullet. This is how it's going to be. But then didn't do the other side of, how does our team use this product? Do they know what this means? When a customer comes in and brings them this thing on their phone, right, do they know what's happening? And so then we saw this big downfall of half of these tools where people weren't equipped to be using them yet. So it's sort of, every time that you add something on, you need to make sure that everybody that will be touching it in some way knows what their role with that is. And also that everybody doesn't everybody doesn't need to touch everything from end to end,
Right.
every member of your team, right? So sort of knowing your position on the football field, so to speak, of,
Yes.
okay, your thing is to receive it. You don't need to worry about how it gets on the site. You don't need to do anything. You just need to know when the customer comes in with this is what you do. So sort of being equipped, being ready, this sort of patience and unsexy theme, I think kind of all comes together.
I think that's important too, and educating your consumer, your customer about what this is. Sometimes people just put it on the site, and people are like, "What the hell is this? I don't even know what
Yeah.
I'm doing on this." Right? So it is this idea of we have to make it clear to everybody what this is, why we have it here, what purpose does it serve for our team, for our customers, to make it easy. And I think that's a real good place to sort of wind up here. Is this idea of you have to think everything through and be willing to take the time to make sure everything's connected before you launch. Because if not, you're wasting money, you're wasting customers at time, you're wasting your team's time. All you're doing is creating frustration around, instead of really thinking it through to say, if we do this correctly, we're going to continue to enhance the experience we want for our customers. And then when I'm marketing that, then I deliver on that. Now I get the great testimonials. Then I can put the testimonials into my marketing mix and they validate it. So I get more people going, oh, great, they said this, but look at all the people who said it was. Let me go back in. And it becomes that cycle versus disjointed. And we run things on sort of hoping we deliver on
Yeah.
what we're marketing. And we don't really want that.
Circle of life.
Yes, that's a good place to stop. So, all right. So, listen, I could chat with you all day. See, that I love about these shows is the time just flies by when you get into a rhythm. All of a sudden, you look up and go, "Oh my God, we've been talking for a while here." So, the way I end every show is I ask 5 or 6 questions, random questions, and I call them the one. So you just think of the first thing that pops into your head. So, first thing, it's a 2-part question. If you think about yourself, like I said, I have 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and I look at that transformation in junior year, 10th grade, junior to senior. A lot of things going on, a lot of ideas and things. If you look back at yourself at that time and see yourself today, what's the one common thread that's always carried through? Like you say, that's me. It was me then, it's me now. So that's the first part. Second part is, if the 16 or 17-year-old you saw you now, what would they be most surprised with?
Wow. The common thread would probably be something like being a little bit nerdy and, computers and technology, all of those pieces probably from then to now and even before then would be the common one. And maybe what would surprise? Probably the haircut.
There you go. I love that. That's a great answer. That is a great answer. I love asking that question because people go, I never thought about that. So that's good. All right. So the next question is, I'm assuming we're all happy again, we can travel and things like that. What's the one place that you haven't traveled to that you would like to travel to?
Iceland. Easy.
Great. Okay.
Top
so
of the
then
list.
tied in with travel, what's the one thing that you always need when you travel? Like that one thing you cannot travel without?
Noise canceling headphones.
There you go. Great. Love that. Is there a brand that you like?
I have Apple AirPods and the Bose over the ears ones. It depends on how you're traveling. It gets complex, these needs. So
it is. Okay. What's a book or something you're reading, something you're listening to or watching that you would recommend to the audience?
A book I recently finished is called Think Again by Adam Grant. And it doesn't tie necessarily into a specific business or marketing piece, but it's about being willing to rethink things that you know as fact or you hold as true values. And I think that's something that so many people are missing or maybe don't even know how to approach, and saying, not even saying I'm wrong and this is how I'd change it, but in saying, is this right? Does it need to change? And being able to understand and look inward and then how to take that outward from you, whether that's in your personal life or in business, whatever it might be. And the author does a really good job at sharing examples of how to do that and why, and huge differences it's made, in healthcare and business and stuff like that. So
I'm looking at it right now on my bookshelf. It's a great book. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Okay, two more. I took all your friends and family, close people who know you, put them in a room and said to describe you with one word. What's the word they would use to describe you?
Ooh, I would probably say something in the line of nerdy would be the adjective, because I think working in tech and working in marketing, everybody just thinks that somehow you are the internet and you internet for a living.
Right.
For anybody that watches Friends, nobody knows what Chandler does exactly. Right. So probably that, because then that ties into a lot of my other interests, or maybe athletic in some way between running and weightlifting. So one of those two.
Okay. Last one. We've talked about a lot of great things, great conversation. If there was one thing that you hope the audience would take away from our conversation, what's that one thing that you would want them to get?
How incredibly valuable patience is in marketing.
That is great. I love that. Yeah, I could not agree more. Wow, that's a good one too. Listen, thank you so much. This has been a phenomenal conversation. So tell the audience how they can find you, where to find you online, where you hang out social, where they can connect with you. Folks, you should follow and connect with Whit, but go ahead, tell them where to find you.
Yep, I am at Whit Norrad, WhitNorrad, on all the social platforms, whitnorrad.com and flexdealer.com.
Great. So please do. So, folks, thank you again. Audience, you know the drill here. At the end of every episode, what do I ask you to do? I tell you, please think of someone in your network who would benefit from this conversation. Please share this episode out with us. Please leave us a review. It helps other people find the podcast, and always subscribe, because you'll get the updates when we put out episodes every single week. Again, our goal of this podcast is to help those of you who find yourself in charge build those skills up, so that when you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I'm in charge, but what do I do? We're here every single week with guests like Whit to help you build up those skills. Again, I know there's a lot of places that you could get your content and watch your content. The fact that you spend time with the both of us today means the world to me. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Whit, again, absolute pleasure. Thank you again for being here.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.